How's everybody doing?
Great. Good. Just right here with James on the left.
So when you have all of your primary specialists back, not to put a target on anybody, but do you feel like you might have the best collection of specialists, not just that you've had here, but one of the best collections in the country by way of talent, what they have coming back?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it from that perspective. I don't really compare ourselves to other people necessarily. But certainly it's nice to have a veteran group, that's for sure. Having guys back is always a plus. I want to make sure that we're always striving to get better, not being complacent with each other, but certainly having experience in game day experience in different environments, whether it's at home or on the road, definitely has value.
Here on the left, Eric.
James mentioned it that you got all these guys back, but how do you kind of keep the ongoing competition? What's that look like at spots where you do have returning starters?
Yeah, so we every single day mix our groups. We do it as well on offense and defense. So, they're really going through the spring. There really isn't depth charts. Even though you might have returning starters, we don't treat it like that in this program. So every day with the so-called first group, it's a different rotation. So, and then we chart everything and make sure that literally every single guy by position should get the same amount of reps. I want to make sure I get a full evaluation of every position. So it's literally charted every day, and I look at the end of the day, how many kickoffs were there, how many field goals were there, and make sure that the guys are getting equal amount of reps with different groups, with different snappers, with different holders, those kind of things. We want to have competitiveness in this group. And again, if you're a returning starter, I'm not going to act like that doesn't matter. It does, but it's also not a guarantee of anything.
Right, Zach.
Moving to nickel, how does Jaden look this spring? I mean, how does he come in and kind of establish himself in the room? And what does his versatility that he's shown before kind of bring to that room?
Yeah, he's a very versatile athlete, does a great job. But I would really refer those more to Coach Hamp. He's dealing with him a little bit more right now than myself. But he certainly has a lot of value as far as what you said with the versatility in different positions that he can play.
Right here, James.
At punt return specifically, when Tez was as good as he was, and replacing him when he was down briefly last season was a bit of a challenge. Who is getting looks there here starting in the spring besides Gary, who we know did it in the past, but besides him, who else is getting looks there?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of guys back there right now. You tend in the spring, you want to start with more. It's always easier to take guys off of something than to add guys onto something. So we've got probably 6 or 7 guys, but I would say the guys that stick out to me, DeCorian Moores is a very explosive athlete. Really, really good with the ball in his hands. Anytime you have young guys, you just worry about decision making in the moments and those kind of things. Not that I'm concerned with him specifically, just generally speaking, younger players. You mentioned Gary, and then let's see who else is back there. We got Cooper Perry working back there a little bit. So we've got some guys that have done a nice job with it.
Right here on the left.
I'm not concerned about it. I think when it comes to fall. We'll have plenty of guys that are capable. Again, our number one thing, if you remember, we have 2 goals here. It's to own the ball and not get penalties. So if we're the best punt return team in the country, that's awesome. But more importantly, I don't want to give up any possessions. I want our offense to get as many possessions as possible. So we really put a premium on decision making back there more than explosive playmaking. Again, not that that's not important, but we're a little bit different than other people in that way.
Right here, Eric.
Just in analyzing and assessing Atticus's season last year, kind of what were some things that you took away that you found, I guess, were really positive, and what are some things that are maybe priorities, workouts for this offseason?
Yeah, I thought Atticus did a really good job. We were better in field goal than we've been the last few years. We were better in kickoff as well. So I thought he did a nice job. What I want to see, what I've talked to him about is finishing towards the end of the year. I felt like we faded a little bit at the end of the year with our kickoff stuff. And I think some of that can be how I'm coaching and how the reps that we're getting. You always have to be conscientious with players, player load. Sometimes people don't think of it with specialists, but it's like a pitcher. A pitcher only has so many pitches in him, and so making sure that I'm efficient with their rep count, that I'm making sure that I'm putting him in position to be his strongest at the end. And I've done some off-season study stuff with some NFL guys and other guys of how I can manage that to make sure that I'm putting him in the best position so his leg's the strongest at the end of the season as opposed to the beginning of the season. And again, it's something that a lot of people don't think about, but if you think about it like a pitcher, it's very, very similar. So me making sure that I'm aware of that, and then him being aware of that, and not being satisfied. We need to. Again, I said it already, but it's not just talk. Like he had a good year, but there's certainly plenty of room for improvement. So keeping him hungry, and I don't think that's going to be any kind of issue. I think he's really excited and proud to be at Oregon. He knows, anytime guys come from different schools, They understand how amazing this place is more than guys that maybe have only experienced this. And so he knows how special it is. It means a lot for him to be here. He's from Oregon. And so when he puts that O on his chest, it means a lot to him. And I know he's very proud and wants to finish it right.
Right here, James.
Of the non-specialists themselves, but on your units, by my count, there's over 1,000 snaps, and like half of the top 14 guys in terms of usage are gone. Who goes into filling some of those roles? And a guy like Kenyon, who had a ton of reps, because his volume is going to go up on offense, does his volume on special? Are you planning for his volume on special teams to go down because it really only has like one direction to go?
Yeah, good question. So we do I think a good job here of really monitoring that. So we always every week I get a rep count of offense and defense, right? And then I give our staff, starting with Coach Lanning and the rest of the staff after that, a rep count of how many reps a guy played on what we call the big four, which is punt, kickoff return, kickoff cover, and punt return. How many they had in that game, how many reps they had, and how many reps they have on the season. So we want to make sure that we're not underutilizing or overutilizing players. But at the same time, special teams here is a priority. It's not just talk. It's helped us win games, and we know it can help us either win games or lose games, right? And so Coach Lanning's stance is that guys can start on 2 units. So if you're a starter on offense or defense, besides O-line, D-line, or quarterback, you can start on 2 units. Certainly, I'm not selfish, and I want to be really good on offense and defense. So someone like a Kenyon, where maybe he started on 3 last year, I could start him on 2. But as long as there's not going to be a huge drop off, maybe I only start them on 1. So we're always managing it. But what you'll find is, this happened when I was at Memphis. We first started doing this. I don't know if you guys know who Tony Pollard is, but he's a running back in the NFL, great player. And I knew he was one of the best running backs on our team, so I was only using him on 1 special teams unit. And then the head coach came to me and he's like, "Well, you realize he's only in certain packages. He only played 16 plays last week." And I didn't realize, because I just knew he was a great running back. So that's when we started really keeping track of that rep count. And when you see that, it's because, maybe the offense that week is in more 10 personnel and Kenyon's not on the field as much. Or maybe that week they're in more 12 and he's on the field the whole time. So just monitoring it that way and making sure, again, that we want to make sure we don't overutilize or underutilize. And then the nice thing about special teams that's great is we don't have a thick playbook, right? So it's easier to play when you're younger. So the experience is always valuable. Don't mishear me, but the experience is less important, in my opinion, on special teams than it is on offense, defense, just because there's less moving parts, there's less to think about.
Right here, Eric.
Going to ask a similar question to the one I asked about Atticus for Ross, of just kind of what you took from last season and then kind of where are some places that maybe he needs to make some improvement this year.
Yeah, well, I talked about how finishing better, specifically with kickoffs, and then really his height on field goals and improving that, and then his goal. We sit down and we talk about, areas that I think guys need to improve and areas that they think they need to improve. And I know one of the things that he wants to really see improve and compete at is longer field goals. We really had kind of a shorter, mid-range field goal guy last year, and then Boyle would come in for the longer ones. And one of Atticus's off-season and spring goals is to improve where he could potentially compete to be that guy. Certainly that decision won't be made now, but in fall camp, I know that's one of the things that he wants to see improve. Really, I don't have the chart in front of me, but his 45 and in field goals throughout his career, counting at Oregon State, have been really, really good. It's when he's gotten outside of that range, it hasn't been as strong. And so he spent some time with some of his other personal coaches in the off season, and then obviously with me and evaluating how he can improve that.
Back left, Matt.
Specifically back to Cooper and DeCorian, what traits do you like to say, hey, like they're good enough to get reps as a returner?
Yeah, I should have said Malik Benson also. I forgot. Apologize. I just walked off the field. So I talked about it. So the traits that we look for in returners, number 1 is to be a great decision maker, right? We want to own the ball. So I can't have a guy, some teams really will put explosive playability more so than that. Again, we're pretty conservative because we've been so good on offense, right? Like the worst thing I could do is give another team's offense another possession because we fumble a ball or we don't make a great decision. It bounces off one of our guys. So the number 1 thing for us, again, I'm not saying we don't want explosive playmakers. I think that's kind of obvious. But the number 1 thing is the kind of decisions that guys are going to make, the kind of communicator that you are. If you think about a ball bouncing around or something, being able to point and yell poison and If it's a 10 and end kick, putting your heels on the 10. If you need to fair catch it, knowing when to fair catch, understanding situations in the game. Do we need to force a return here? Or is it smarter just to take a fair catch and get our offense the ball back because we're ahead by 14 in the fourth quarter? Just so putting all that stuff together and being a decision maker is really the number one thing. And we do a good job here. We start practice every day for the first 5 minutes as a special teams period, which is kind of unique. It's great. Coach Lanning does that. It shows his emphasis on special teams, and it gives us much more time because how do those guys become good decision makers? You got to put them in position to make those decisions. It's easy to sit in a room or in a meeting room. It's way different. Like none of you have probably ever done it. I know I've never done it at this level at Autzen Stadium back there trying to field a punt with all the people running at you and all the stuff that's going on to block all that out and be a good decision maker then. So we try to put them in those situations as much as we can beforehand. And then again, communicate. And then, like I said, being explosive playmaker after that would be the third piece.
James?
You mentioned kickoffs a couple of times, Joe, just to kind of go into the calculus of it. When you have two kickers who have a pretty good touchback rate, all told, why directional kick? I get the strategy. You want to get it inside the 25 if you can. But when you were having kickoffs out of bounds at nearly a 10% clip when it wasn't touchbacks, where is the trade-off of if I'm going to get 10% out of bounds, why not just kick it through the back of the end zone if we can do that?
We had 10% out of bounds? I didn't know that.
10% of the non-touchbacks. It was 4 out of 30
Gotcha.
non-touchback.
Gotcha. Well, the reason, I'm not sure I fully understand your question, but the reason that we would directionally kick is because you want to cut the field off, right? You don't want to cover the full field. So if you kick a ball, the field's 53 and a third yards wide. So our goal is to kick it from the left hash. Generally speaking, we have variations, obviously, but from the left hash to the sideline, and then to put more people over there than they can bring out, or that they can block, right? And so, what the trade-off is you look at it and you say, okay, what is the odds if they do return the ball? Where do they start? What is our odds of stopping them inside the 25 versus what are their odds of putting it past the 25? Or if you're unfortunately kicking it out of bounds, they start on the 35. You just got to do the math of that and say what's the probability here. It's a way different. It doesn't sound like much, but like if an offense starts on the 19, it's way different to an offensive coordinator than starting on the 25. And it's what you call hidden yardage. It's something that's really important, and if you don't understand, learn it, because it's like really important in a game that most people don't pay any attention to. It doesn't really still show up in the stat sheets. But to give you an example, let's say we kick the ball off, and their team starts on the 20, okay? And then they kick the ball off, and later on we start at the 32, right? There's a 12-yard difference from them starting at the 25 if they had just taken it. You guys feel what I'm saying? So over time in a game, if you get 12 yards on a punt return and they get no yards, if you start adding up all those yards over a game, it's crazy. It's like it can be anywhere from, it can be whatever, but a lot of times they'll all look at it and it's like, wow, we were plus 150 in that game. Well, if you took 150 yards and added it to your offensive numbers or took it off your defensive numbers, it'd be amazing, right? Well, all those yards are what can make the difference in the special team stuff. So it's that's what we do. Kicking it out of bounds is terrible. Obviously, I hate it. It's not good. It's catastrophic. So the problem is you don't know when it's going to happen. That's the deal. And you just try to play to your kicker's strengths. No different than any other position. Like what are you guys good at? How I tell them is like, okay, even last year we would kick off the right hash sometimes, if you remember, to make it hard for other teams. What I tell people is like, okay, Atticus, if it was $1 million kick, where are you putting the ball and where are you kicking it? I'm putting it off the left hash and I'm kicking it to the left corner, coach. Cool, that's what we're going to do, right? Like I try to be as player friendly as I can. I've had kickers before that wanted to be in the middle and kick it different ways. I've had kickers that wanted to be on the right hash. I'm going to always play to the player's strengths and then adjust what I do to that.
Great, Coach. Thanks. That's all we have time for.
Okay, thanks guys. Appreciate your guys' coverage. You guys all do a great job.
Thank you.